What's up everybody, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you, or rather an EP review in this case, because this is one I definitely want to go over, because here lately, this has become one of my favorite US black metal bands. So today we are going to go over the latest offering from Wolves in the Throne Room, Crypt of Ancestral Knowledge. This comes on the 29th of September on Relapse Records. This band formed in 2002 in Olympia, Washington, and formed by brothers Aaron and Nathan Weaver. They've been doing this stuff forever, and they've been doing a great job doing their brand of atmospheric Cascadian black metal. I've only recently kind of started to get into this band. I think Thrice Woven was probably the album that really got me into them. And then Primordial Arcana really just blew me away. In fact, that was probably my favorite black metal release of 2021, I believe. Anyway, overall, this is their third EP. They have 7 full lengths. Now, I didn't listen to any of the tracks that were released. I wanted to listen to the entire album because generally these guys know how to write really good albums that just flow well. And I figured, why not just listen to this entire EP as a whole rather than just listen to an individual track? And I'm kind of glad I did. This is a really interesting EP in the sense that it's kind of a tale of two sides. The first 2 tracks are notably different than the last 2 tracks. And honestly, all the tracks are kind of different from one another. And honestly, for an EP, at least from them, I was kind of expecting this to be a lot longer. This only tracks a little bit over 20 minutes. And, you know, that's kind of odd because generally these guys like to write long, broad, sweeping songs with huge crescendos and long, drawn-out atmospheric movements. And you do get that, but again, in kind of a condensed form. The first track, Beholden to Clan, is probably the one I would say is like the most familiar with their sound overall. Granted, their sound has changed a lot over the years. This one definitely is closer to what you would expect from them. It is a more straightforward black metal song, but the big thing that's the difference, I would say, on this EP overall versus maybe the last 2 are the prominence of synths. In fact, the synths really carry a bulk of the melody on here. Now, the guitars are definitely prominent. They have their big atmospheric tremolo melodies and harmonies, and they do a good job creating this very icy, cold atmosphere. In fact, I would say this album is as cold as this frozen waterfall on the cover, which is quite beautiful. But it's the synths on here that really create the giant sense of atmosphere. On this track in particular, they kind of give it like a very old school, like Emperor sort of vibe, or maybe like Sacramentum. It's very melodic, it's very somber, it's very icy and cold, and there's a really good vocal dynamic going on with high screams and low cavernous growls. The vocals are definitely kind of set back in the mix, and the drums sound very crisp. The snare kind of has, I don't know, like a big kind of reverby sound to it. Like it kind of sounds like someone slamming a screen door, except the screen door is in like a subway tunnel. I know that comparison's kind of odd because what's a screen door doing in a subway tunnel? I don't know, but that's kind of what I heard. The song definitely contains probably some of the heaviest moments on the entire album, especially the big kind of doomy breakdown that's on it, but that breakdown kind of transcends in this big, lush, open synth section. And again, these big synths are kind of the star on here. It's really odd. I really wasn't expecting that. Like, just imagine if like Tangerine Dream was really big into black metal and wanted to create something very cold and dark. And I mean, some of their stuff gets a little dark, but like not this dark. Like there's a gothic sort of vibe to it, like a wintry gothic vibe, like almost like a extra miserable haunted Christmas. And that vibe kind of carries over to Twin Mouth Spring. It's a little bit slower and doomier to start, but this song does a great job in terms of like kind of weaving a, you know, song between light and darkness. You have very bright, atmospheric, you know, lush, pretty moments on it, but also very like dark and somber moments. The song starts off way more dark and doomy. In fact, there are like these looped, whispered vocals that are very creepy and unsettling. And then as the song goes on, you get into these folky acoustic passages, again backed by the lush synth work on here. And it's that interesting kind of like ebb and flow of the song that I really got into. Like it keeps kind of switching gears and switching moods. It eventually does break into the blast beats and tremolos that you would really expect on a black metal album, but I kind of like the, you know, atmospheric direction on this one. Like it's a little bit more brooding and slow. Now when you get down to the last 2 tracks, at least on the archives, they are listed as instrumentals, but I wouldn't say entirely, because you still have whispered muttering or chanting and kind of groaning in the background. But these 2 last songs are easily the most different ones on here. Initiates of the White Heart is a very like sort of like jammy song. Like it feels like just kind of a tribal jam with acoustic guitars, lush synths. Again, you have these sort of like meditative sort of like whispers and chants in the background to create atmosphere, and like it kind of just stays in this kind of like interesting sort of like, I don't know, like meditative jam state. It stays in that vein up until you hit the bridge and you get this almost sort of like industrial vibe. Like the looped noise that kind of comes in there is definitely not like in tune with nature. It feels more mechanical. It feels more, I don't know, like something you would hear on a Godflesh album. It was definitely something that caught me off guard because generally like the whole vibe of this band's sort of sound is like being very attuned with nature, like the whole Cascadian sound. And this feels more, again, like mechanical, again, like industrial. Now it does return to the more acoustic melodies and the synths later, but it's that bridge in the middle that just was kind of odd. But when you get down to the last track, Crown of Stone, this is just sort of a droning synth piece. Like it's entirely ambient. There's no percussion. You have, again, like some whispers in the background, nothing you could really make out. It's just sort of haunting and ghostly. Towards the end, you get some sounds that I really had trouble describing. Like it could be a guitar chord. It could just be like a synth passage that's a little bit more harsh. It could be a sample of like someone lighting a gasoline-soaked fire pit full of, you know, wood on fire. It has like sort of a whooshing sound. I don't know, but I know that this song, I don't know, it feels just kind of like a long interlude, like a setup for something bigger, and this is how the EP ends. And overall, I like the whole vibe of the album. I do think the first two tracks are probably the big standouts on here, just in terms of like if you are looking for like straight up sort of like cold, icy, melodic black metal with a lot of atmosphere. Those two first songs are definitely that. The other two songs feel a little bit more experimental and, again, like kind of feel like transitional tracks. I do think Initiates of the White Heart is a very pretty and very interesting song. Like I like the whole sort of, like, I don't know, like outside in the wilderness sort of jam to it up until you get to the weird industrial soundscapes, which kind of fit and kind of don't. It does feel kind of jarring to me just in terms of like the overall vibe of the song, but at the same time, it does create kind of a interesting, haunting atmosphere of its own. The last track, though, while I like it, is definitely a cool ambient piece. It's almost sort of soothing in a way. It really feels like this EP didn't get enough of a giant build-up to like more intense moments to really, you know, kind of like cap it off with something this calm and this serene. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. I think this is a really solid piece. I do think the first two tracks are the big main standouts. It delivers on everything that this band does well, and I think the more prominent synths on here really make this kind of stand out. Like I would come back to it just because of the killer synth work on here. I like the two instrumental tracks, though I think Crown of Stone may not have been the way to close this. I would have preferred something a little bit closer to like Beholden to Clan. Like I think that is just an absolutely awesome song. But I think all this is really well done. It's frosty, it's cold. It's not that outside just yet here, but believe me, we'll get there, and this will be some, you know, nice mood-setting music for, well, probably how miserable the holidays are going to be in terms of like traffic and Christmas shoppers, and I'm already dreading that. So I'm going to get off that train right now and get back to talking about how cool this is. If you are a big fan of Wolves in the Throne Room, I would definitely say Emperor and Sacramentum for damn sure. Like there's definitely that vibe too. Maybe even a little bit of dissection in there too. Either way, I dig this. Solid EP. Definitely check it out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It's also on our channel someplace, but thrallsmetal.com also has our store. We have new shirts. We have old shirts. We have hats now. If you are looking for any of our merch, that is definitely where to get it. Also, if you live in Toledo or just in the tri-state area, we have a show coming up at Frankie's Inner City. We are stoked to have that place open up again. That was a place where we hung out and saw a lot of killer bands, and we have some killer bands playing there on the 1st of October. Revocation, Unearth, Entheos, and High Command. $25, I believe, at the door or online. I don't know, it's one of the two. Either way, you should go. It's a smaller venue. It's kind of a close personal thing. You'll definitely get a fucking, probably meet the bands and shit, because they'll probably be floating around and hanging out. come check it out. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a badass time. I'll definitely be there. I'm reasonably sure some other Thralls will be there as well. So yeah, come on out and hang out. And of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It means the world to us. I know I say the same shit every time, but I mean it. You guys rule. You guys keep us going. There are still a ton of releases coming up, so we are definitely going to be busy here. Working on the Judas Priest ranking as well. That's going to take some time because, again, that's a lot of listening. But outside of that, got some other stuff we're working on. So, yeah, plenty of content coming your way. And I'm going to throw you one more big thank you because you guys rule, and we will catch you later.